Hi, welcome to Sully Sports Talk. I'm Derek Daly. I'm here with Travis Hendryx, and we're here with Coach Clif Carroll. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
I appreciate it, man. It's a beautiful room, man. I hope you're going to buy me lunch after we're done here.
Yeah, we are here at the beautiful Century Bar and Grill in Alpine. Travis, you want to go ahead and ask Coach here the first question?
I think we have to get that lunch part in writing, but we'll see if we can work something out.
I think it's in the contract.
Coach, we were talking a little bit earlier about, it seems like yesterday the season just ended with the being able to host the conference tournament, but just give us your overall thoughts on how the season, kind of a recap and just how things progressed from the beginning to the middle to the end.
Well, we started the season, it's always tough in Division III because you don't have as much practice time as you do in the other divisions. So, you start the season, you're playing NAI Division I schools and Division II schools who, they get scholarship kids, and then they've been practicing since August. And so we struggled early. I think we started off the year 0-4, something like that, 0-5 before we won our first game. But, not once did we ever waver from our plan. I came right in day one. I started talking about winning a championship, and people thought I was crazy. Our old SID, Dave Garinger, I told him that, he said it'd be really great if you can make the tournament this year. I said, heck, Dave, forget making a tournament. Let's host a tournament. And I thought he was going to fall out of his chair. So, I had those expectations all year. So we started off a little slow, and but we learned a lot about ourselves. And once we got to conference play, I think we proved we were a really good team. There's a few games that really stick out. The East Texas Baptist game, we let a 12-point lead go, and obviously that last game against Hardin Simmons in the tournament, we just didn't play our best. And hats off to Hardin Simmons. They played really well, but it's always disappointing when you go out without giving your best. And so there's some games that we definitely would like to have back. But overall, I thought the season was a success. I think I've came in and I've established my program. I think I've established a new, a different type of culture around there. And I just hope that it continues to grow and we can continue to recruit, high quality kids and high character kids. And, hopefully next year we're back at the top of the ASC, and in a couple of years we'll be back hosting the tournament again is the plan.
Absolutely. First time we hosted the ASC tournament here in Alpine in about 10 years. You had that in mind the whole time? That you had that type of talent?
Yeah, I told Dave back in July, hey, we're going to host a tournament. and I've never shied away from the fact that I thought we could win championships here. I never have. And I'm telling you, I got some funny looks. You look around and say, Coach, you do realize we won 5 games last year.
Right.
Yeah, but the talent's here, and I knew that the types of kids that we were able to recruit over the summer, I knew we were going to have a special type of team. And you set your goal is hosting a tournament and winning the ASC West and playing the NCAA tournament, but you never really know how it comes together. But when we got to practice and to see the competitiveness of the kids and the character of the kids and how hard they worked, and then just how they gelled together as a team, I knew that we were capable of doing really big things.
Absolutely.
Coach, you talked about the team gelling. Let's talk about team chemistry for a little bit. It's been a long time since I've seen a team play with as much unity as I've seen with this bunch this past year. What were some keys, or maybe even a single key, that contributed to that team chemistry?
I think, it all starts really at the top with me, and just having a singular focus and trying to sell the guys on what the program's about, And we talk a lot about success in everyday life. We talk about winning every day. And I think if you get all of them bought into that, it helps with that. Now, I think it also helps, everybody complains about the long bus rides. I know we wear Travis out, behind the wheel sometimes. But I think you put those guys in the bus back there, there was never a dull moment on any of those trips, I'll tell you that. This was a really good group of kids. And, I think a lot of that speaks to their character. I think we got a lot of high character kids. We got a lot of high achieving kids. And I think all that just kind of lends to having a common goal and coming together. And they're a special group of guys. Now, they're not choir boys, but they're a really good group of kids, and they're fun to be around, and they're a lot of fun to coach.
Thinking about that, we're in the off season now, and you're starting the recruiting process. What type of characteristics are you looking for in recruits?
I'll tell our guys that we have now, when we bring these kids on campus, I want them to spend time with the recruits. And so they spend time on with them doing the campus tours and showing them things and going to lunch and things like that. And I tell all the guys, I said, listen, if we bring a kid on campus that you don't think is going to fit our program, come tell me, and I don't want to recruit the kid.
Right. So
I think that's a big thing, and we've had it both ways. We've had guys come on campus, and our guys are like, Coach, I don't know if he fits. And then we've had guys come on campus where, immediately when the kid leaves with his parents, my phone's blowing up. Coach, we got to get that guy. He fits right in with us. And so, just having having the current players involved in recruiting is big. I really look for what's your goals? What's your goals in life? I don't want a guy that just wants to be a basketball player. I want somebody that has aspirations. I'm very big on success. In academic success. Social success. I want guys that want to date the prettiest girls in school. I want guys that achieve every day. And so I think if you can look for those kind of traits. And obviously, you're looking for a special kid to come in and play for a guy like me. I'm tough to play for. I'm a hard-nosed coach. I demand a lot. And if I can find a kid I think could be a good fit in our community, a good fit with the team, and a kid that I think can play for me and be successful, usually we'll be okay. We'll be all right.
Coach, going back to last season, we did get off to a slow start against some very quality teams. Was there a particular turning point where we just kind of turned the corner, where we really started picking up some wins? And if you could pinpoint one game or one time during the season where we turned that corner?
I think we really didn't turn a corner, but we proved how good we could be. The very first ASC game, we played Laterno on the road. And if you think back, we were on the road almost the entire first 2 months. Yeah. I mean, it was ridiculous how many miles we put on the Lobo bus. And so, we'd just been beaten, I think, by, I may be wrong, but I think we competed fairly well against Wayland Baptist and LCU and then Permian Basin at home. And then we got on the road, we went out to Laterno and really just put together a game plan and played a good game and won it fairly handily. I think it was an 18-point game or something like that. And it was our first win, and I think you come in and you just look around and everybody's like, okay, that's what Coach's been talking about, And then unfortunately we go to the next game to UT Tyler, and I think we've just played with some tired legs. I think the road got the best of us. For UT Tyler, I think that was a game we shot 1 for 25. But then we turned around and came home and played Louisiana College, who played an ASC championship game here, during the tournament. And extremely talented team. They got a first-team All-American on the team, and we beat them very handily. And I think that's when everybody said, "Okay, we're on track. This is what we're going to do." And I think that we've proved ourselves that we could be one of the best teams in ASC on that night.
Absolutely. You talked about you lost the first couple of games, and then all of a sudden you got some momentum going. Mm-hmm. Did you make any mid-season corrections or little tweaks here or there, or anything like that? It was a new team. Yeah. Came here, so your expectations in the very beginning of the year might be different as you go on in the year and kind of realize, all right, well, maybe I can do it like this.
Yeah, we made a personnel change. We did two things. I introduced the guys to a shot fake. Okay, I think after we lost at Tyler and we lost the game at University of Dallas where we had shot, University of Dallas, we were like 2 for 18, and then. At UT Tyler, we were 1 for 24, 1 for 25, whatever it was. And we came back to practice. I said, fellas, we're just taking bad shots. And so we introduced the shot fake and not introduced it, but emphasized it. Right. And I wore I've got a buddy back home, used to be my assistant, named Philippe Lilovois. I call him Otis. And Otis has this saying, it's called Shot Fake Nation. So he makes us all T-shirts. So I show up my Shot Fake Nation T-shirts. And so, we emphasized it. I think it really helped us trying to get better shots. And then we made a personnel change. I took Rocky Feliciano, who was an all-conference player last year, an all-conference player this year, and a senior, and definitely one of the keys to our success. And I took Jacob Dawson, who was a transfer from LCU, and one of the most steady guys that I've ever coached. And I asked those two guys to move to the bench. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big key, because they sacrificed for the team. Mm-hmm. And they embraced their role, and they never complained, not once, and they worked hard. And I think that was a sign to the rest of the guys on the team that, hey, two of our best players are willing to do this for the team, you know, we owe it to each other to come out and play better. Yeah. And so I think those two things, just looking for better shots and then having those two guys do what they did, I think really was a big key there, especially offensively for us.
And the reason for that was so that way you have a little more energy coming off the bench when you're subbing in?
That, in those two games where we'd shot so bad, they were combined like 0 for 20 or, you know, I mean, they just had two really bad weeks of shooting. And so I just kind of wanted to get a reset for them, just kind of, you know, just have them have a different perspective of basketball. And so I moved them to the bench, and all of a sudden we started winning games. And so I never made the move back, you know, and it just worked for us this season.
Yeah, definitely did.
I always think of when Greg Popovich took Manu Ginobili out of the starting five and put him on the bench, and then you had he and Matt Bonner as probably the two best bench players in the NBA for a while. But you really see leadership and maturity when you take people like that. You take people like Rock, and you mentioned Jacob Dawson, you put them on the bench, and they don't sulk. They still bring their best to the game. Who will you be looking for this season to step up and take on a strong leadership role with the absence of Alex and Rock?
You know, it'll be Dawson. It'll be the seniors. We have a great group of seniors. You know, Pat Mound and Xavier Webb and Dawson and Damian, who's been here. You know, and I'm leaving somebody out. I don't have my notes in front of me, but you know, we're going to have an outstanding group of seniors. I'm not worried about leadership at all next year. Those guys want to win. They want to win in a bad way, and you know, getting to see Harden Simmons celebrate on our court hurt. I mean, it really did, and I kind of needle that because I got every picture of it and I put it up in the locker room. So you know, I want to make sure leadership's not going to be a problem. It's always been my philosophy to take some of your better players and start them on the bench. Mm-hmm. It's always a nice feeling knowing when you start a game that you potentially could get better by going to your bench rather than you know, dropping off. Yeah. And so that's part of the thing. I call them in and you know, hey, listen, man, just because you're coming off the bench doesn't mean you're not important to the team. That's why Popovich brings Ginobili out there. Now there's other things, you know, they're trying to limit minutes and you know, keep them fresh and all that stuff. But you know, just the fact that you have somebody like that you can put in and your team potentially gets better is kind of a comforting feeling for a coach.
Absolutely. So we got year one in the books. Did amazingly well, obviously. What's the expectations for year two?
I wouldn't say amazingly well. I think we did good.
Okay.
And I think the big thing was just bringing pride back to the school. Mm-hmm. You know, pride back to the program. I think, you know, my whole thing from the time I came on the visit, you know, came on my interview and talked to Mr. Worley and Dr. Kibler, and you know, I wanted to have a program that we were going to be proud of. And that's just one thing I've just heard over and over was, you know, we want to be able to wear Sul Ross basketball stuff again, you know, and we've got a beautiful facility and we've got a great history, you know, with the team in the mid 2000s that made the run, and I wanted those guys to be proud. I wanted those guys to come back and be a part of it. I wanted those guys to reach out to me and say, hey man, you know, we want to come back and see you guys. I want to come back and hang out with you guys. So that was my very first goal, was just to put a product out there that we can all be proud of. And I think we did that. I think we can all say that we were proud of this team. Mm-hmm. And so going forward now, it's time to put together some great seasons. It's time to put together a string of championships. It's time to make an NCAA tournament. And you know, people think I'm crazy. This is year number 2. And there's some people that may think that year number 1 might have been a fluke. And but I don't believe in my heart that it was. I think that we were a good team. And I think that we got the capability of really taking the next step in becoming a regional and a national power in Division III. I think we could very conceivably could be in the NCAA tournament as soon as this year. I think we could win more ASC West championships. I think we can win ASC championships. You know, we just have to continue to bring in quality young men. We got to continue to hold true to the core values of our program. We got to continue to grow.
Yeah. Coach, my final question has nothing to do with basketball, but you are a barbecue enthusiast, and I've been waiting all week to get into this discussion here. But you've worked for some big programs, Tech, Lamar, and you know, going out of state. What is the main difference between Texas barbecue and anything that's out of state? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but
that is a loaded question.
Give it your best shot.
You know, first I want to say this. I am a barbecue enthusiast. I love it, and it shows. Okay, I mean, look, I could stand to skip a few barbecue meals. You know.
Well, I can speak from experience, though, that you are a barbecue enthusiast, traveling with the team and just dining out in some excellent barbecue menus. But I digress.
When we go on the road, it's important to me that our guys have a good experience.
Sure.
Okay, and there's no, there's no hiding it. We are a long ways from anything out here. Okay, so when we put these guys on a bus and we're traveling 8, 10, 12, 14 hours wherever we're going, I want them. I don't want them in 5 years when they get back together. I don't want them, when they say, man, those road trips were brutal. You think about how long. I want them to say, God, Coach took us to some great barbecue joints, you know? And so you start thinking about the goods, and that's part of giving those guys a great experience, you know? And I am a barbecue enthusiast, and I traveled the world, and especially during my time in Division I, when I was able to travel, really throughout the country recruiting, I stopped at every barbecue joint I could. And there's some really good barbecue. The best, though, is in my front yard.
There you go.
The Soros tailgate's what I cook. But no, I think we ate at Texas Monthly puts out the top 50 barbecue joints. I think they do it every 4 or 5 years, whatever. And a guy named Daniel Vaughn's the editor there. And so I basically took that list and I tried to hit every one of them. I tried to take the guys to them. So I think we went to 6 or 7. We went to Bodacious in Longview, went to Style Switch in Austin. We went to my buddy Matt Proctor, who we went to kind of grew up together, and he's from Brownfield. But he's got a place called Stillwater in Abilene. We ate there. We ate at just so many of it. It's so good. But
you mentioned Styles in Austin, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's actually been a movie set for several major motion pictures, I believe.
Yeah. The building that they're in there on North Lamar in Austin was, probably the most famous one was Dazed and Confused. It was a pool hall, and they were great to us. I called them. They kind of set us up, and they took me and Travis back in the pit room. We had to meet the pit master. But Shane Styles is the owner there. He's a great guy and really doing good barbecue. So yeah, I love barbecue. Now to get back to your question, everybody's different. KC's different than Memphis and Texas. Texas, we have more of the brisket, and I think beef ribs are kind of getting big here. You go to Memphis, you got to eat the baby backs or the spares, and you go to KC, you can get more of the saucy kind of things, and it's all good. I'll eat it all, man. It really is. It's good, but it's fun. It's fun to be in this profession. We get to go around and experience different things, and it's important to me that I'm able to give my players that kind of experience, and hopefully this year we'll be able to take some cool trips. I'm kind of talking to some guys about, especially Division I teams, about taking a neat trip and going to a unique place. And I don't know if we may be able to find barbecue everywhere, but we're going to find something good to eat wherever we go.
Never a disappointment, that's for sure.
I'm going to need to hit some more away games this next year.
Hey, man.
All right.
Jump on that bus. Roll with it. Hey, we do have the new bus now, man. We got a little more room, man. Jump in there with us.
That sounds right. Yeah. My last question does involve basketball a little bit. You had the newcomer of the year in the ASC in Caleb Thomason, and the freshman of the year in Brock Anders. How comforting is that you have that to build on for the next couple of years? Oh,
that's great. Brock Anders actually was the rookie of the year in the entire region.
Yep.
Our region goes from here to Virginia, and so that's a huge deal. He's the only player in the history of the ASC to ever receive that honor, and so it is nice, because I know that we're going to be competitive for a couple of years. We can do special things for a couple of years, and what a lot of people don't know is the young man that we had sitting out hurt, Isaiah Tillman, is he's probably as talented or more talented than anybody in the league. So having those 3 guys, along with the guys we're bringing back, the seniors, and Jacob Kalos is just going to be a junior, and he started for us, and just having that core of guys and seeing those guys come into the gym every day and work to get harder and get in the weight room and work to, in Division III, we can't work out right now legally, and so the only time I get to see them is when they're walking by my office going into the gym and when they're walking by my office coming out. But you're already seeing a difference in their bodies. They're all getting bigger. They're all getting stronger. And I'll tell you what, there's not many times during the day that I don't hear a ball bouncing out in the Gallego Center. I mean, those guys are working their tail off. they've tasted what a championship tastes like.
Yeah.
And you know, the funny thing is they all ask me, say, Coach, do we get rings? I said, no rings. No rings. Not for the, you get rings for the conference championship, and you get rings for the national championship.
That's right.
And so that's kind of their next step. They want rings now. You know, the banner's nice, and the T-shirts, and the you know kind of the pictures, and you know all their classmates patting them on the back. That's all nice, but you know, the ultimate goal here at Sul Ross is for kids enter our program is when they leave, they got a championship ring on their right hand and a diploma in their left hand. And I think we're well on our way to doing those two things.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. That's all the time we have today for Sully Sports Talk. Coming live from the Century Bar and Grill. Have a good one.